Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc.
A law student is taking CARICOM to court. That's our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Monday, July 23rd. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Nicole Best. Good evening. Trinidadian law student Jason Jones has filed legal action against two organs of CARICOM claiming discrimination and preferential treatment at Caribbean law schools. Jones, who is the president and co-founder of the Association of Caribbean Students for Equal Access to the Legal Profession, ACSEL, has initiated legal proceedings in the Caribbean Court of Justice. We get more in this TVJ News report.
Not the first time concerns have been expressed about the process to become an attorney at law in the Caribbean. Essentially, one must first obtain an undergraduate law degree from the University of the West Indies and then complete vocational training at one of the regional law schools like Norman Manley Law School in Jamaica or Hugh Wooding Law School in Trinidad and Tobago. But the Association of Caribbean Students for Equal Access to the Legal Profession is contending that students of non-UWI law degrees have consistently been denied equal access to the regional law schools. They are mandated to sit an entrance exam, which the association argues is fraught with discriminatory practices, seemingly in contradiction of CARICOM's integration principles. The association's head, Jason Jones, is a UK Commonwealth scholar. He noted that in 2015, he, along with hundreds of other non-UWI law graduates, was denied entry. According to him, he's been making every effort to resolve the matter through meaningful dialogue with various stakeholders in CARICOM to no avail. And so the association is heading to the courts. Mr. Jones has initiated legal proceedings in the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, against the Council for Legal Education, the Council for Human and Social Development, and the Council for Trade and Economic Development for the infringement of his rights as a national of Trinidad and Tobago to access vocational training in the region in order to become an attorney at law eligible to practice within CARICOM member states. The association has chapters in Jamaica, Antigua and Barbuda, Guyana and Barbados.
ExxonMobil says the Stabroek block it controls offshore Guyana has more oil than it had initially estimated. The oil giant announced on Monday that it has now been confirmed that the 6.6 million acre block has the equivalent of more than 4 billion barrels of oil. The previous estimate was 3.2 billion oil equivalent barrels. We get more in this special report.
The ExxonMobil-controlled Stabroek Block offshore Guyana is now confirmed to have in excess of 4 billion oil-equivalent barrels. ExxonMobil announced today that it increased its estimate of the discovered recoverable resources from a previous estimate of 3.2 billion oil-equivalent barrels. The company has advanced its evaluation to support a third phase of development and consideration of 2 additional phases. In its statement, the oil giant said the increase follows the completion of testing at the Liza 5 appraisal well, a discovery at Ranger, the 8th discovery longtail into the Turbot area evaluation, and completion of the Bakura discovery evaluation. According to Exxon, Guyana's first development, Liza Phase 1, will use a floating production, storage and offloading FPSO vessel to produce 120,000 barrels of oil per day starting early 2020. Liza Phase 2, targeted for sanctioning by the end of this year, will use a similar vessel designed to produce up to 220,000 barrels of oil per day and is expected to be producing by mid-2022. According to the company's senior vice president, Neil Chapman, continued success in Guyana and progress in other upstream growth projects in the U.S., Permian Basin, Mozambique, Papua New Guinea, and Brazil are giving us an additional confidence in achieving our long-term earnings growth plans that we outlined in March, end of quote. In addition, it was outlined that the Liza Phase 5 well successfully tested the northern portion of the Liza field and along with the giant Payaro field will support a third phase of development in Guyana. The Payaro development will target sanctioning in 2019 and use a FPSO vessel designed to produce approximately 180,000 barrels of oil per day as early as 2023. The Longtail well established the Turbot Longtail area as a potential development hub for recovery of more than 500 million oil equivalent barrels. Additional prospects to be drilled in this area could increase this estimate. The collective discoveries on the Stabroek block to date have established the potential for up to 5 FPSOs producing over 750,000 barrels of oil per day by 2025.
Meantime, over in Trinidad and Tobago, tests on the well that was leaking oil and gas in the Gulf of Paria show that there are now no more leaks. And this comes after the successful completion of a well control strategy that was executed last week. We get more from CNews.
In a press release, Petrotrin says this now allows for the execution of a formal abandonment process in which the well will be properly capped. This process will continue for the next few days, and an exclusion area of radius 3 nautical miles from the site will be maintained until it is completed. The company says bird and wildlife plus the beaches show no visible impact, and their incident command center is being deactivated today. However, Petrotrin says it will continue to monitor the situation and be ready to respond if necessary.
Antigua and Barbuda's Acting Police Commissioner Atlee Rodney is concerned that documents being circulated about police officers on social media may have a negative impact on the morale of the force. His comments come against the background of an internal investigation which is underway into 2 officers who allegedly created and distributed the documents which accused several of their colleagues of corruption, abuse of power, brutality, and drug pushing, among other things.
It does not help law enforcement. It does not help the morale of the police. It does not help the society on a whole. It does not educate anybody. I mean, if you have concrete evidence of some person doing things, there are means you can channel that information. But trying to just be malicious it doesn't really help anybody. If you look at the contents of some of the information, it might be persons who know about the organization. And I'm saying if you know about this organization, if you care about this organization, I don't think that is what you'd want to do to this organization. Some of the information are so quote-unquote detailed, is that where would you get that information like that? Would you just make that up? Because you take some level of maybe some truth and you might with a lot of lies. So it gives the impression that, okay, you have an inside story. But we're just encouraging persons that don't be misguided by misguided people, you know? Because if you really love this organization, if you really love law enforcement, it will show by the posts that you put out.
The 3 PDF documents went into circulation early last week, and last Wednesday, the Serious Crimes Unit searched the homes of 2 female officers and seized their electronics. Among the allegations in the documents are that senior cops were involved in criminal activities or were covering up the unlawful activities of others, and that a senior officer who should have retired remains in the force to protect a colleague who is on suspension for alleged fraud. Jamaica's opposition leader, Dr. Peter Phillips, is raising questions about the value the country is getting for the monies being spent on the state of emergency in the parish of St. James. In addressing People's National Party supporters at its National Executive Council meeting on Sunday, Phillips said 250 million Jamaica dollars has been spent so far, and that only includes money spent on the policing side of the operation and not the cost of the military presence or the zone of special operations in Mount Salem. The opposition leader also reiterated his party's stance that the state of emergency cannot be a long-term solution to crime, and he urged Prime Minister Andrew Holness to put measures in place to transition areas under a state of emergency into areas of normal policing. Still to come in Caribbean Newsline, the LGBT community in Barbados holds its first Pride March. Stay with us. There's more news after the break.
Her passion for what she believes is unmatched.
So you could, I wanted to get to the point where you can shake me off that perfect piece.
She's a book-off radio host, philanthropist, and motivational speaker.
And I said, I'm going to write you a check for $10,000, which I'm not.
Spirit, soul, and body.
To get them some help through the transition.
I'm Karita D, and you're listening to Girlfriend Get a Life.
It starts from sunrise, a city filled with an island vibe, music, people, color, friendship, culture, and the warmest of smiles. Come enjoy the unique costumes, pulsating steel pans, exotic culture, exciting fetes, and unforgettable people. Discover Antigua's Carnival, the Caribbean's greatest summer festival, July 27th to August 8th, because the beach really is just the beginning.
Festival again, festival again, festival again, festival again, festival again, festival again, festival again. The Caribbean's greatest summer line, yeah, it's country around the time. 44 is the hair, I know you love it here. Festivities, we love the Caribbean, but all night, no time to sleep, emancipate with we, back food and folklore, culture on the 44, back food and folklore, welcome to our island shore, back food and folklore, entertainment to die for, back food and folklore, culture on the 44.
Directors of Barbados Gay, Lesbian and All Sexuals Against Discrimination Be Glad says they're satisfied with the turnout at the first Pride March held on Sunday. The march marked the end of several activities celebrating Pride Month. Director of Be Glad, Donya Pigott, said the number of people who publicly supported the march was beyond expectations. And co-organizer Ruan Mohammed added that the crowd was diverse and there was no negativity from onlookers. She said the organization would continue its work in advocating for equality and human rights and hopes the march will help to derail the narrative that encourages negativity toward the LGBT community. Well, Dr. Tonya Haynes, lecturer at the Institute of Gender and Development Studies at UWI Kayville campus, briefly addressed the crowd at the march. She encouraged attendees to be at the forefront of the fight for equal rights for all.
As Caribbean people, given our history and the present, we have to be at the forefront for equal rights, for an equal place for everybody in this world. Our history demands it. We went from burning caves to banning homophobia, transphobia, ableism. This place is big enough for everybody.
Anglican priest Father Clifford Hall also supported participants in the Gay Pride March. In what appeared to be an impromptu speech, the priest told the marchers they were all beautiful people and there was nothing to stop their movement.
The swollen rivers are flooding the great estuaries of the world into the open sea. There's no stopping it. Impure minds won't stop it. Fake arguments won't stop it. Legions of Pharisees won't stop it. The armies of Mara won't stop it. The roaring lion won't stop it. And some silly words written in a book thousands of years ago won't stop it. It's here now as it has always been, part of the natural order of things. It's the song of the universe. Don't misuse it, don't abuse it. It's called love. And don't let anyone bully you, or torment you, or tyrannize you. They've had their day. Yours is now and tomorrow, and forever. And so, speaking as priests, I say welcome, and welcome always to the flock of Christ. And fear not, for it's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom.
Cuba's parliament has embarked on a project to make the country's 42-year-old constitution more relevant to modern society. On Saturday, the House of Assembly began deliberations on the document, which seeks, among other things, to create the post of a prime minister to serve alongside the president, to redefine marriage to mean a union between two people and not necessarily between a man and a woman, and allow for private property ownership. We get more in this report from Richards of Canal Caribe.
During the first session of the 9th legislature of the Cuban Parliament that was held this Saturday, the more than 600 deputies analyzed and began debating the text of a new constitution in a process that is seeking a total reform of the existing Magna Carta in use since 1976. The draft constitution includes a preamble and 224 articles in which the post of prime minister is proposed to be created alongside the president, splitting the roles of head of government and head of state. The text reassures the principles of the socialist character of the revolution, the guiding role of the Communist Party, and the irreversibility of the economic and political model. Cuba's new constitutional project also proposes that marriage should be defined not only as the union of a man and a woman, but as the union between two individuals, thus paving the way for the legalization of same-sex marriage. The constitutional project recognizes various forms of property not included in previous structure, as the people's socialist property and the mixed and private property. The project likewise conveys to major guarantees of citizens' protection to higher standards, reinforcing the rights to equality and opposing all types of discrimination, comprising those based on gender identity. Furthermore, this weekend the Cuban Parliament approved the new Council of Ministers formed by 34 deputies, 8 of which are women. The council is being led by the head of state, Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, and as first vice president by Salvador Valdés Mesa. The Assembly also backed up the proposal of promoting 9 other persons to the post of minister. So Cuba will have a total of 17 ministers. In a process without precedents and as an example of real democracy, the constitutional project, after being approved by Parliament, will be submitted to popular consultation.
And ahead of Newsline Sport, West Indies are 1 down in their one-day international series against Bangladesh. We'll tell you how it happened after the break. Stay with us. Sport is next.
This hurricane tip comes to you compliments the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Be prepared. Clear roads and clean up debris from surrounding areas.
Join leading media and communications executives as well as climate change experts in Kingston, Jamaica from August 13 to 15 for the Caribbean Broadcasting Union 49th Annual General Assembly. This year's assembly, held in partnership with the CARICOM Climate Change Center, explores the theme, Building Resilience to Climate Change, Business, Technology and Content Options for Caribbean Media. Featured presenters include the Honorable Dr. Rural Reid, Jamaica's Minister responsible for information, the region's Chief Climate Change Negotiator, Mr. Carlos Fuller, the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica, and the International Telecommunications Union Caribbean Office. And broadcast manufacturers and media services enjoy special exhibition rates at this year's conference, joining premier exhibitor Eutelsat. For more information on discounted rates for delegates staying at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel or flying on the official airline Caribbean Airlines, go to the CBU website or call the Secretariat. The CBU looks forward to welcoming you to this key conference on climate change and the Caribbean media.
Cause when we reach in this place, all of we there is family. So give me some bro. Oh, 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 oh. And then we be friend, we have it so. Oh, 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 oh. And we not be
Conscience is a bit about his album It Feel Good. In fact, he's planning a tour to promote the album next month. It Feel Good is Conscience's third studio album.
Hamstrung by a slow pitch, West Indies failed to fire, and Bangladesh, led by their most capped opener Tamim Iqbal and most capped bowler Mashraf Mortza, won the first one-day international by 48 runs on Sunday at Providence. Tamim collected his 10th ODI 100 and unbeaten 130 to anchor his side to 279 for 4 in 50 overs after they chose to bat.
Not be denied though, getting to that century. When he came to the Caribbean in 2009, got a test match 100 in St. Vincent, and that triumphant tour for Bangladesh. This has been a very different experience come 2018. We continue to find the gaps. Shabir Rahman, unfortunate to be given out stumped here on the field by Joel Wilson. As we look at the replay, his foot was down when the bail came up, but the decision was already made. Then came Mushfiqur Rahim, and what a difference he would have made. Even as Tamim was swinging for the boundary, Shakib would have looked on and wondered why he could never accelerated in the same way like Mushfiqur here. 43 runs coming off the last 2 overs. Never before have Bangladesh scored this many runs of the last 2 overs of a one-day international. Finishing very, very strong. Andre Russell starting the last over, taken away for 6. And then 6 more. Another expensive over on the way. Mushfiqur playing his part. Use of the wrist, and then came the wicket. Bishu, safe pair of hands at short fine leg. Russell, nothing really for him to celebrate on his return to one-day international cricket so far after 3 years away. And for the West Indies, a recognition that they let things get away towards the end. Finishing off with a boundary, the new man Mahmudullah.
But the home team's batsmen failed to adjust to the conditions, and though there were periodic explosions from the bat, the resolve required was absent, and they limped to 231 for 9 in 50 overs, with Mortaza using his vast experience to noodle out 4 for 37 from 10 overs.
But he played all around the ground, Hitmire, especially square of the wicket, and finally brought up his 50. West Indies were a little bit behind the required rate and just looking to push things on. Hitmire gets out, caught at cover. Vizor picks up his second in consecutive deliveries. That was Rovman Powell. Jason Holder came in and opened his shoulders. Didn't last too long. Deceived by a slower delivery and caught at mid-off. And Andre Russell came in and launched this one out of the stadium. Slapped one down the ground. Then got deceived by a slower delivery and popped it up to long on. Ashley Nurse trying to go over the top. Hold out at long on. Mahmudullah taking the catch. And there was a flurry of runs towards the end between Bishu and Alzari Joseph. Some good hitting from Joseph in particular. And they stuck around for quite a while. Put on 57. Joseph having a little bit of luck there. Bishu continued to play well. Struck the ball very firmly. This in particular was a really powerfully hit shot.
And the result means that the visitors take a 1-0 lead in the 3-match series, which continues on Wednesday under the lights at the same venue before it concludes 3 days later at Warner Park in St. Kids. We're going to switch sport now. We're going to athletics, and former world and Olympic champion Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce dipped below the 11-second barrier for the first time since her return to the track last month, as she produced a strong late surge to win the 100 meters in the Diamond League London on Saturday. The 31-year-old Jamaican clocked 10.98 seconds to beat American Desiree Bryant into second in 11.04 seconds, while Jamaican John Smith was timed at a personal best of 11.07 seconds in finishing third.
One way they go. Fraser-Pryce is already half a metre behind. Bryant has started very well indeed. It's these two going stride for stride. But look at Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce rolling back the years. My word, 10.97. We said she would get quicker and quicker. We said she would go sub 11 seconds. She's done both those things, and she is absolutely delighted.
And over to action at the CAC Games in Colombia, where Trinidad and Tobago copped its first medal in swimming. TV6's Sergio Dufour gives us that report.
After topping his heat in the 100-meter freestyle in a time of 49.24 seconds, Dylan Carter turned up the heat to win the 100-meter A final in a time of 48.95 seconds. It was a games record as well. After the race, he spoke in an interview posted by the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee about the journey to recovery.
I'm extremely happy and elated with it. The past 4 months have been a real tumultuous journey for me. Not many people know this, but I actually had a pretty bad pectoral injury in April. So it was a real road back, and I tried. I worked big thanks to my doctor, Anil Gopi Singh.
Switching to field hockey, TNT's men's and women's teams picked up victories as well. The men beat Cuba 2-1 and the women destroyed Guatemala 12-0. Here's what they had to say.
Was the heat affecting you guys? It looked like it was difficult at times.
Yes, this is different to Trinidad. It's very humid, it's very draining, but we have to stick it out because everybody going through it. It's not just us.
The women face Barbados next.
And that's the sport. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
And they really don't know, because they never really got. And another thing that we don't get into enough, Brady, is help a young man understand what it means to be a man.
That's right. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's one thing that when you were talking about video games and movies in particular, is oftentimes you just see sort of one type of man in movies. And I think it's important, as you said, whether, you know, boys growing up need someone to confide in, whether that's to talk about.
A robot dance is an unusual element for the Tobago Heritage Festival, but this feature in the 2018 opening production helps to shape the story of 4 teenagers caught up with technology. On their journey to find the sibling of one of the teens, they each experience different areas of the island's cultural traditions.
Again, the major developments of this day. Trinidadian law student Jason Jones files legal action against CARICOM, claiming discrimination and preferential treatment at Caribbean law schools. And in sport, West Indies are 1 down in their one-day international series against Bangladesh after losing the first match by 48 runs. That's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, log on to CarnaNews.com. At least subscribe to CarnaNews.com. And for more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and subscribe to CaribVision's YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow. But until then, have yourselves a good night.